his eye. Then saying, "What are you looking so sad about, Jack?"
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. I mean, that's not right what you just said.
What do you mean? What I just said?
I mean, I'm getting drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talk. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talk about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, Clay, one time in my career, I went on a Formula One tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
Well, you'll be on the tour.
What's happening, my people? It's Cast Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Boxtorian, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, Cameron Terrell. Salute, Cameron. Salute to everyone. And welcome to another episode of Cast Sports, the Boxtorian. Today, a look at women's boxing featuring Ann Wolfe. A look at women's boxing featuring Brown Sugar and Wolfe. Have the family today. Welcome, Cameron Terrell. Good to see you in the building, my friend. Still early in this big week of boxing history, Tuesday afternoon. And how is the family today? Yeah, we take a look every now and then at women's boxing history. That's what we're going to be doing today. This show is brought to you by BVO Sports TV from the Sports Talk Network. He requested a look at Ann Wolfe. So we're just going to look at women's boxing history featuring Ann Wolfe, okay? We're going to just take a look at Ann's brief look at her life and her boxing career. Then we're going to look at some other women's boxers. And I found a nice little piece on the question is, why does the average person underestimate female boxers? We're going to take a look at that. And then we're going to take a look at some iconic women's boxers, some of the trailblazers that made women's boxing. That's the reason that women's boxing is what it is today, okay? All that today on Cass Sports the Box Historian, bringing you all that boxing history. But first, as always, we start out with our fight of the day. We always go back into the archives and find a classic fight and start the show off with that. So let's go. Our fight of the day today. Okay, now since today is all about women's boxing, for our fight of the day, we're going to look at 10 of the greatest female fights of the modern era. Okay, 10 of the greatest female fights of the modern era. That's what we're going to start out with today. But how's everybody today? Salute again to Cameron Terrell in the building. Good to see Cameron today. Hope to see him a lot, many times more on Cass Sports. Okay, yeah. We usually take a classic fight every day and look at it, but we're gonna look at today's fight of the day. Going to be 10 of the greatest female fights of the modern era. Okay, that's what we're doing today for our fight of the day. So let's get started with that so we can get to brown sugar and some more of women's boxing today. Okay, so let's go with 10 of the greatest female fights in boxing history. Number 1, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano won the first fight between these two women. Taylor Serrano won. Clarissa versus Wolfe, wow, that would be a good one. Clarissa would have to be very careful though, because that power Ann Wolfe had, was devastating. She had one of the most devastating knockouts in boxing history, male or female. We're gonna get to that, the Vonda Ward fight. So Clarissa would have to be very careful in that fight. Very careful. That would be a classic. Wow. That would be a classic to Cameron, Clarissa, and Ann Wolfe. Ooh. So we never did get to see Ann Wolfe and Layla Ali. That would have been a nice one too, but that's one that got away. Okay, let's look at these 10 women, 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era. Number 1, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. The biggest female fight of all time. With unprecedented height and anticipation, an iconic venue, it could all have blown up in everyone's faces. In many ways, it needed to deliver. And it did, and then some. It delivered everything it promised and more. All things considered, the greatest and the most important female fight of all time. A true watershed moment in boxing history. Taylor Serrano won. True watershed moment. Taylor, after a good start, was barely hurt in the 5th round. It looked like it was over. Only a matter of time. Now Serrano brought power. It looked to be the definitive deciding factor, but Taylor proved once again what an extraordinary fighter she is. Over 19,000 fans packed into the Garden in New York that night. 1.5 million more watched at home. It was some fight, some night, a special one, an unforgettable one. Taylor recovered and won a split decision. It was at times brutal and savage, but equally a thing of absolute beauty. Taylor and Serrano did everyone proud. A fight for the undisputed world lightweight title. They, in truth, mattered very little. The titles did. It was just that kind of night. At some point, it was just that kind of night. This fight was. Taylor Serrano won. Okay, next. Looking at 10 of the greatest women fights of the modern era. Number 2, Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. Shields versus Marshall. Another great women's fight. Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. Remember that one, Cameron? Okay. Now, it was a battle for the undisputed middleweight championship of the world. But in truth, it was a battle for personal supremacy. The narrative of an amateur fight 10 years previous, the only defeat on the record of Clarissa Shields, amateur or pro. And Savannah Marshall was the one who put it there. Okay? Only defeat in the coach's career, amateur or pro, Savannah Marshall was the one that put it there. And both fighters played their part. They sold the show quite beautifully. A contrast in styles and personality. Shields are natural in such circumstances. She excels in an environment like this. Shields was made for the big show, okay? And Shields didn't miss a step. She danced her way to the ring to a chorus of boos from the Marshall vocal faithful at a sold-out O2 Arena in London on a night women's boxing shined so brightly. Now, Marshall was always a step behind Shields, right? Shields was simply inspired. A brutal, savage fight, but not a close one. The American Shields got her revenge, and the boos eventually subsided. Shields left the ring to cheers, and even a London crowd knew what they had just witnessed. Okay, next. Michaela Mayer versus Mava Hamadouche. Now, a fight for unification at super featherweight in 2021 was an unrelenting war that even on multiple views has to be seen to be believed. Mayer and Hamadouche stirred up something quite remarkable and special. Nearly 1,500 punches were exchanged in just 20 breathless and ferocious minutes. As a pure fight, without the hype of Taylor Serrano, it was even better than that. Madison Square Garden thriller from 2022. Now the scores were wide, perhaps a little harsh on Hamadouche, but Mayer edged most of the rounds and deserved her win and her moment. Mayer proved a lot that night, maybe even more to herself. Okay, number 4, looking at 10 of the top women's fights of the modern era, all about the women today. Number 4, Chantel Cameron versus Katie Taylor. Cameron versus Taylor. It was the long-awaited homecoming for Katie Taylor. It looked in some doubt when Amanda Serrano pulled out injured from their scheduled rematch. But Taylor, to her credit, called out her toughest possible challenge, the undisputed super lightweight champion of the world, Chantel Cameron, had always wanted to fight Taylor. Finally, she got what she had always wanted. Cameron faced the passionate, ferocious Dublin crowd on her night of destiny. Cameron had the ring walk first, and her name was on the wrong side of the fight poster. But it was on a night that she just wouldn't be denied. Cameron needed a good start, and she got one. Taylor was behind early, but came roaring back in the second half of the fight. But she couldn't quite close the gap on the scorecard. Cameron became the first fighter to beat the Irish hero as a professional. She felt disrespected prior. With her historic victory, in many ways, Cameron had what she needed. It was a fight that more than justified the occasion. Okay, got a lot of Katie Taylors in here. She's been in a lot of great fights. Ray Patterson in the building, straight out of New Jersey. What's up, RP? Salute. Taking a look at women's boxing today. For the fight of the day, we're looking at 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era. Okay, almost halfway home. Number 5 is Katie Taylor versus Natasha Jonas. Taylor versus Jonas for number 5. Now, in a rerun of their 2012 Olympic showdown, Katie Taylor and Natasha Jonas gave us a fight of the year contender in May of 2021. In COVID hit times, it lacked for a crowd, a stark contrast to London and those record-breaking noise levels of the match at the Olympics. The lack of a crowd didn't mean for a lack of action or quality. Jonas started slowly. The first 2 rounds almost certainly cost her the fight, but she came desperately close to finally winning that elusive world title. Jonas made it even after 8 rounds. Taylor, sensing defeat, boxed quite beautifully in the 9th, but they brawled and went to a war in the final round. Jonas went for broke and very nearly saved her night. 1 round was the difference on the cards. Wafer thin margin, maybe even 1 punch decided it. The rematch never came. Jonas eventually got that elusive world title. When one came, a few more followed. Okay, number 6. Natasha Jonas versus Michaela Mayer. Yeah, we got 10 of them, Cameron. We always start the show with 1 fight of the day, but today is 10 of the greatest women fights of all time since we go until 4 o'clock for the show now, but this is just the fight of the day. 10 of them today. But Natasha Jonas versus Michaela Mayer is number 6. It was a fight that was never going to disappoint. A battle in the early months of 2024 for the IBF World Welterweight title. Now, Natasha Jonas, seeking her career signature win in front of her hometown fans in Liverpool. The American, Michaela Mayer, looking for redemption and a second world title. In simple terms, Jonas and Mayer went to war at the M&S Bank Arena. Jonas and Mayer served up a classic. After 10 relentlessly savage rounds, Jonas edged it by a controversial split decision. Cries of robbery did the rounds. It wasn't, but it could easily have gone the other way. Wasn't a robbery, just a fight that easily could have won, but certainly not a robbery. Just one of those close fights like that. Now, Jonas was probably a little relieved. Mayer, more than a touch, aggrieved. Nobody would have complained if the honors had been shared, if it would have been a draw. Nobody would have been mad at that easy. Okay? It would have been a draw. Number 7, Chantel Cameron versus Katie Taylor. There's Katie again. Cameron versus Taylor. It was a night of revenge for Katie Taylor in November 2023, as she got her revenge over Chantel Cameron to become a 2-weight undisputed champion of the world. Taylor took away the unbeaten record of Cameron and her undisputed world super lightweight baubles in another classic in front of a sold-out crowd at the O3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. At the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. Now, Cameron was denied a clear knockdown in the opening round and can justifiably complain about the constant holding of Taylor, and equally so, a headbutt that left her bloody from the early rounds. But the Irish hero got her tactics right. While Cameron didn't quite reach her heights we saw 6 months earlier, now Taylor was inspired on the night and edged on the words on the cards in another truly incredible spectacle for their sport. Now, I don't know why they didn't have a third fight, because that series was 1-1 and they both were each other's only loss. 2 majority decisions. That had trilogy written all over it, but we never got it. Okay, number 8 of the 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era. Katie Taylor again. Katie Taylor versus Delphine Persoon. This was a classic hit too. Now, New York seems to bring out something in Katie Taylor that no other venue can. On the night, it all went wrong for Anthony Joshua in 2019. It very nearly did for the Irish superstar. This was on Joshua and Anthony Ruiz undercard, right? Now, Persoon, the wide betting outsider, pushed Taylor incredibly hard. Taylor looked exhausted at the end and a beaten fighter. Now, a lot of people had this fight even, and one judge agreed, but 2 others didn't. Persoon left the ring in tears. Taylor was lucky to some degree. If she had lost, few would have complained. The rematch ended the same way, but with a little less controversy. Yeah, I thought Persoon won that one too, but they gave it, the judges didn't, and that's who counts. Number 9, Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas. We're looking at 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era, all about the women today. Number 9 is Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas. Harper versus Jonas. Natasha Jonas was considered over the hill, weight drained, and a perceived lamb to the slaughter in 2020 when she challenged the heir apparent to Katie Taylor for a world super featherweight titles. At age 36, the Liverpool fighter was there to lose, and heavily, right? Make no mistake about it. Now, Jonas must not have read the script. There was something about Jonas in the lead up to the fight that she knew something we didn't. A quiet confidence that she would defy the substantial odds against her. A back garden fight that changed perception of women's boxing and of Jonas. Miss GB was inspired. She had Harper rocking and teetering in the 8th and was desperately unlucky to leave the ring with only a draw to her name. Now, Harper more than played her part and did well to survive that awful 8th round and rally to save her title in the 10th round. Again, many people had Jonas winning, but also they suspected their away fighter would be left frustrated. The rematch would look inevitable at the final bell. Never happened. And finally, the 10th of the 10 of the greatest women's fights of all time. We have Shannon Courtenay versus Ebony Bridges. Okay. Arnie Boxing in the building. What's up, Arnie Boxing? Shawa in the building. What's up, Shawa? How are you today? Shawa, Arnie Boxing. Salute. And yeah, Shawa and Arnie Boxing in the building. Okay. And all these great channels. Feel free to drop the link in there so everybody can subscribe to you. Shawa, Arnie Boxing, great channels. So feel free to put your link in. You don't have to wait till 4, Shawa. I was just kidding with you that day. But Shawa waited till 4 and put it in. But you can put your link in right now, Shawa and Arnie Boxing. But salute. Yeah, we taking a look at women boxing as we do periodically. And we started out the fight of the day was 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era. And finally, Shannon Courtenay versus Ebony Bridges is the final one. Here we're going to talk about Wolfe, Brown Sugar. Okay, brought to you by BVO Sports TV. Yes, y'all always laughing. Yeah. Okay, Mike Rim in the building. What's up, Mike? How are you today? Yeah, we're going to talk about Ann in moments, y'all. Minutes. What's up, Mike Rim? How are you today? Mike Rim, one of the oldest Cast Sports supporters. And I don't mean old in age, Mike. I'm talking about oldest Cast Sports supporters. As far as length of time supporting the show. Yeah, Mike been here from way back, almost to day one. But salute, Mike. Women appreciate you. Okay. Yeah, this is the final one. The fight of the day was 10 of the top women's fights of the modern era. Okay. There we go. The chat had blinked out on me. Got to be able to see the chat. That's the most important part of the show. Okay, now, the social media hype machine, the lingerie model who would be exposed and sent back to Australia as a boxing fake. That's what many people thought and said when Ebony Bridges came over to the UK to fight Shannon Courtenay for the vacant WBA bantamweight title in April 2021. But Bridges came over to prove a point, and she did. Okay? Now, Bridges was hurt on a couple of occasions, severely hampered by a grotesque swelling over her left eye. But she came roaring back to prove all her doubters wrong, including her opponent. The judges were incredibly harsh on Bridges. The Australian deserved more credit for her work. Now, without the injury to her eye, Bridges would probably have won. Courtenay has since lost her. She lost her world title after that. Yep, and Bridges won after that and became a much better fighter. And she was vastly underrated. And yet again, this is another rematch that never materialized, right? Never came. Okay, so that was the start of the show, 10 of the greatest women's fights of the modern era. All about women's boxing today, women's boxing history. And there's Brown Sugar right there. Okay, so let's get started on Brown Sugar and Wolfe. Okay. But how's everybody? It's Tuesday. Still early in this big week of boxing history. Okay, I think tomorrow I know Thursday we're going to go back to our countries. I believe it's going to be Great Britain. We're going to take a look at boxing history in Great Britain on Thursday. Wednesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday, right? A little equipment malfunction, but here we go. We got to go this route. Okay. Okay, let's get started with Ann Wolfe. We're just going to look at a brief little background and Wednesday. Thank you, Shaw. Yeah, this Shaw's link. Feel free to hit that. Arnie Boxing's link is in there. Hit those links and subscribe to those great channels and check out their content. I promise you will come back and thank me after you check them out. You're going to be like, wow, Cat Sports, why didn't you tell me about these great channels sooner? Okay. This thing is so loud when I be scrolling, man. I hate that. Okay, but let's go with Brown Sugar and Wolfe. There we go. Bear with me for one moment. Man, this is crazy. Everything always works all the way up till 2 o'clock. That's when everything goes haywire. But it's live. That's what happens when you're live, you know. But we're going to make it work. Okay. Brown Sugar. That was her ring name. Ann was a warrior. Ann Wolfe. Come on, Ann. Work with me here. But how's everybody this Tuesday afternoon? Early in the week of boxing history. There we go. Brown Sugar. Okay. I think. Okay. Now, Ann Wolfe is an American retired professional boxer and trainer and actress. Now, she held world titles in 3 different weight classes simultaneously, only the second person to do that along with Henry Armstrong. And she's regarded as one of the greatest female boxers of all time. And she is a member of the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame, the big one. Oh, okay. Okay. Appreciate you, Cameron Terrell. Okay, so she is a member of the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. I think that just started around 2014. And she's also in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I think only one of like 6 women in it. We're going to look at that later too, all the women in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Now, Ann, like I said, other name, she's known as Brown Sugar. She fought in 4 weight classes during her career: junior middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight. She's 5 foot 10 inches tall, had a reach of 72 inches, and she fought in the orthodox stance. Ann had a total of 26 fights during her pro career. She won 24. She lost 1 no contest, 16 by way of knockout. And that is not too bad for women's boxing. That is a knockout ratio of almost 70%. And Ann had one of the most brutal knockouts of all time in any kind of boxing, men, women, any kind of boxing that won a Von Award. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, the knockout she had of Von Award. Wow, that was brutal. I should have had that and put it up here. But anyway, Ann Wolfe. Let's continue with Ann. Now, Ann Wolfe was a great boxer, regarded as one of the greatest female boxers of all time. She was known for her powerful punching and for being one of the hardest punchers in the history of women's boxing. She had a legendary knockout of Von Award, a feat considered one of the most brutal ever in boxing, period, men or women. Now, Wolfe is considered a pioneer for a combination of talent, power, and dedication to the sport of boxing. Now, like I was just saying, she is only the second boxer in history, along with Henry Armstrong, to hold world titles in 3 different weight classes at the same time. Only 2 people have done that, Henry Armstrong and Ann Wolfe, in boxing history. Okay? And this solidified her status among the elites of the sport, male or female. Okay? Among the elites of the sport of boxing, male or female. As a trailblazer and warrior, Ann Wolfe is a symbol of what can be achieved through grit, talent, and determination, inspiring many with her story and achievements. Brown Sugar, Ann Wolfe. Okay? Yeah. So let's take a look at Ann's personal life real quick. We're going to get back into this more later too. Mike Mazik in the building. What's up, Mike? How are you today? These numbers be crazy. I don't understand. Say 0 people in there, but I'm in here on my own. I know it's at least 1 in here. I don't know what YouTube or whatever they be doing, but let's continue. Personal for Ann, for Brown Sugar. Now, Wolfe was born in Oberlin, Louisiana, and moved to Austin, Texas, where she spent most of her childhood. Now, she moved back to Austin in 1996 with her 2 daughters and 1 son. After being homeless and working construction, she met her original trainer, Pops Billingsley, and she fought her amateur fights under Billingsley's tutelage and started fighting as a pro for RPM Promotions. So let's look at her amateur career then. Okay, let's take a look at Ann's amateur career now. Brown Sugar. Okay, there's Brown Sugar and James Kirkland and Pops Billingsley. Okay. Yeah, I know, Cameron. These numbers be wrong. I don't know what be wrong. I don't even stop looking at them. Now, Ann had a record of 3-1 as an amateur boxer, just 4 fights. But she fought at the 1998 U.S. National Championships. That was probably almost the extent of her amateur career. Now, she won a decision over Tammy Hendrickson of Seattle in the quarterfinals by 50-39. Then she went on to stop Shawnee Keeley of Chicago within 46 seconds of the first round in the semifinal. Then she lost in the finals by disqualification to Lakia Coffin at 1 minute 23 seconds of the third round. Okay, let's look at Ann's pro career. Oh man, look, somebody's knocking. Miss Cass ain't home. Excuse me for 2 minutes. Don't they know them bars be between 2 and 4 p.m.? 2 minutes. Let me go get rid of whoever this is. I'll be right back. 2 minutes. Sorry about this. Oh, man. Okay, here I come. Sorry about that. Okay, let's continue. Okay, back to Ann Wolfe. We was right at her pro career. We stopped at a good point, though. Right at her pro career. Brown Sugar. Nobody left. Matter of fact, some more people came in. Okay, let's continue with Brown Sugar. This show is brought to you by BBO Sports TV. BBO always give me shows, and then he ain't never in here when I do them. Okay. Let's continue with brown sugar. Hit the like, please, and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. That's all that matters to me. The like and subscribe. Cash apps, super chats, all that's bonuses. But the main thing, just come in and support and hit the like and subscribe, okay? I'm happy with that. Okay, pro career for Ann. Now, she made her pro debut by beating Brenda Lee Bell by a 4-round decision. Now, first and only career loss came 4 fights later when she was knocked out in 3 rounds by veteran and future world champion Valerie Marford. Yeah, big name back then, Valerie Marford. Yeah, follow women boxing. You heard of Valerie. She knocked Ann out. Okay, yeah, that was Ann's first loss. Now, Ann beat Vienna Williams by a 10-round decision to win her first world title, which was the IFBA, International Female Boxing Association. That was the junior middleweight title. That was her first title. She beat Gino Nichols by knockout in 3 rounds to win the vacant WIBA junior middleweight title, right? Women's International Boxing Association. That was the second title. She then proceeded to beat Chervelle Williams by knockout in 1 round. That was a non-title fight. Next was the vacant IFBA World Super Middleweight title, which she picked up by knocking out Marsha Riley in 6 rounds. Now she and Riley fought again, this time with the vacant WIBC's version of the title, and Wolfe won by knockout in round 10. And she avenged her defeat against Marford by taking the NABA World Super Middleweight Championship from Marford with a 10-round decision. Okay. Then came a fight against, there's BBO right there. What's up, BBO? This show is brought to you by BBO Sports TV. Salute, BBO. How are you today? Yeah. Working our way through Ann. And then we're going to look at women's boxing history as a whole. We're going to look at some pioneers of women's boxing. But yeah, we're working our way through her pro career right now, BBO. But that's not it. Now, Wolfe versus Ward. This knockout is one of the most brutal knockouts in boxing history, men or women. Men or women. Okay, you got to see that. Al Booker in the building. Yeah, anybody haven't seen that knockout? Ward just walked right into it. Ward was coming forward and just, and she went to the hospital after that, right? Wolfe versus Ward. On May 8th, 2004 in Biloxi, Mississippi, and matched Henry Armstrong's record of 3 world titles at the same time in different weight classes, by gaining the IBA World Light Heavyweight Championship, knocking out undefeated champion and former NCAA basketball star Vonda Ward at 1 minute and 8 seconds of round 1. Yeah, that's what I heard. Henry Armstrong is the only 2 boxers in boxing history to hold titles in 3 different weight classes at the same time, okay? I think Ann had middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight simultaneously, okay? Henry Armstrong is the only other one to do that. That's huge. Now, after the knockout, Ward had a neck concussion because she hit the canvas with her neck when she fell. But that was brutal because she walked right into that. And Ward was taken to the hospital in serious condition due to damage to her neck and head. And the fight was nationally televised, with television commentators calling it the best knockout punch in women's boxing history. I say boxing history, women or men, that one. That was the best knockout in boxing history, okay? So then later career for Ann. Later career for Ann Wolfe. Okay? Now, July 19th, 2005, Wolfe defeated Monica Nunez by a 7th round knockout in Lula, Mississippi. Okay. On August 20th, 2005, she fought and defeated Valerie Marford for the 2nd time by a 10-round decision. Yeah, they fought twice. And then retirement for Ann. She retired. We got more though. Now, Wolfe last fought in 2006, knocking out Cassandra Geiger and decisioning Lisa Ested. And after that, she was working as a boxing trainer. In 2015, she was inducted into the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. And I think it was 2020 when they started letting women into the big one, International Boxing Hall of Fame. And Ann is one of 6 women in that. We're going to cover all 6 of those. Ann is in there. But those 6 are, that's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Ridger, I can't think of her first name. But I'll get to it later. Layla Ali, Ann Wolfe, Holly Holm, Regina Hamage, and Lucia Ridger, right? Lucia Ridger, Christy Martin, Lucia Ridger, Layla Ali, Ann Wolfe, Holly Holm, and Regina Hamage, all in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But it's a lot of women that they have an International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame too. But this is the big one where all the boxers go into. And then, she became a trainer. Wolfe has trained many amateur and pro boxers, including her oldest daughter, Jennifer Finn, and junior middleweight James Kirkland. There's her and James right there. Okay. Now, she had an acting career too. And did. Lucia is a beast, Yara. Yeah. She fought a man. She beat him, didn't she, Sean? I think she beat him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to talk about that too when she fought the man. Now, she also had a brief film career. Now, she was cast by director Patty Jenkins in the role of Amazon warrior Artemis in the 2017 film Wonder Woman. It is her. And 2 of the other actors for the movie, there's Ann on the right in the role of Artemis. That was the movie Wonder Woman, remember? Yeah, I saw that. Pretty good movie. I just watched it because Ann was in it. I didn't care nothing about no Wonder Woman. But when I found out Ann Wolfe was in it, I had to see it. And, that's the only reason but it turned out to be pretty good. I think, what was it, like 2017 when it came out? Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk some more about Ann Wolfe. Brown sugar. Okay. Let me see. Do I need this one anymore? Yeah, I am going to need that again. Okay. I think Miss Cass just came in. One more second. I'm going to put this back on the charge. Yeah. How you doing, Miss Cass? Okay, let's continue with Ann Wolfe, brown sugar. Now, Ann Wolfe, boxer, trainer, philosopher. Okay, she was all those things. Boxer, trainer, philosopher. And she was also brown sugar. Now, okay, let's see. It is here in James, again, Kirkland. Now, Ann came to boxing through the oldest doorway into the sport, survival skills. Okay? She learned to fight to survive, to protect her family. This includes both the siblings she helped through the death of their parents and the 3 children of her own. Okay? Ann put it simply, I got no breaks. Ann calls boxing a poor man's sport, a ticket out of nowhere. She herself has experienced that nowhere. She was living on the streets before she found her trainer, possibility, and a boxing career, and then helped others get off the streets by founding her own gym. Now, Ann learned in school that she could use her mental and physical advantages over other girls on the basketball team to cope with the fact that she never fit in. She said, My shoes didn't match the other girls' shoes, but I could score 30 points while they were scoring 4 points. Okay? Yeah, Ann said she could hit 30. Her shoes didn't match, couldn't afford the fancy shoes and all that, but Ann said she was putting in 30 while the other ones was putting in single digits. Okay? Now, though she respects the sport of boxing and where it has led her to, she also acknowledges the toll it takes on the mind, body, and soul of the fighter. And is also blunt about the punishment fighters take throughout the years. As she explains, boxing is so cruel and is like killing. Ann passes this fact on to her boxers from the first time they enter into the ring. She tells her fighters that they need to get in touch with their inner killers as they step through the ropes, warning them that their opponents will also have destruction on their minds. Okay, not just you, your opponent trying to destroy you too. And she makes sure her boxers are aware of that before they step into that squared circle. Okay? Now, one of Ann's skills as a trainer is the ability to evaluate and train each fighter differently. That's important. We talked about that the other day when we were talking about trainers. You got to be versatile. It's because when you're training, coaching any sport, you can't have no one-size-fits-all philosophy. And one of Ann's skills was her ability to evaluate and train each fighter differently. Okay? Ann had that skill to be able to do that. Her survival skills have led her to view each person she meets as if they were naked, stripping them of money, charm, ego, and sniffing out their inner motivation. Ann said, I try to figure out what motivates them and what moves them. I try to bring out the best and the worst in each fighter, the strengths and the fears. When you can tap into people's real emotions, you can get them to perform at their highest level. She also explains that a boxing gym is a necessity, a place where people learn life lessons as well as skills and toughness. Now, though learning how to dominate in the ring can be one part of becoming a great boxer, it is only one part, as Ann points out. In order to be an entire boxer, a whole boxer, you've got to be a whole person outside of the ring, okay? Ann points out, in order to be a whole boxer, you've got to be a whole person outside of the ring, okay? Now, it does all start in the gym, though. And the first test for most of the boxers who walk through the door is a confrontation in the ring with Ann herself. Every boxer comes in Ann's gym, the first thing they got to do is get in the ring with her. That's how she trains. Before anything else, you got to get in the ring with Ann. Okay? When they walk through the door, the first test for both of her boxers is to get in the ring with Ann herself. Men, women, boys, girls, anyone who gets in the ring with Ann find themselves face to face with a woman whose mental toughness is even more overwhelming than her physical strength. Okay? Ann says, I face so much. You can put me in a room with anyone, and I know how to survive. I think that's who I am. I'm so mentally strong. If you even think you have a chance to beat me, I'm going to hurt you, okay? Ann said, if you even think you're going to beat me, I'm going to hurt you, okay? Sharva said she saw kids in her gym. Yeah, and Sharva, she said when they come in there, men, women, kids, whoever, first thing they got to do is get in the ring with her. And Ann said, if you even think you can beat me, I'm going to hurt you. Now, after 1 or 2 rounds in the ring with Ann, Each fighter comes to learn two things. First thing, respect for her as a trainer. And the other thing, and an understanding of how well they can face down the fear in their own hearts. And she said, some boxers don't come back. And she said, the ones who return have paid the price and are ready to start preparing for the cold reality of the boxing ring, as well as for seductive rewards of honor, prestige, and riches. Okay, that's Ann Wolfe. So now we're going to talk about some other aspects of women's boxing now. But yeah, Ann Wolfe Brown, Sugar, brought to you by BBO Sports TV. Appreciate you, BBO. We usually do these shows from the chat on Wednesdays, but I didn't want to wait till Wednesday. Okay. Now, why does the average person underestimate female boxers? Why does the average person underestimate female boxers? Glad y'all asked. Let's talk about it. Okay. Let's talk about that. That's a good question. Because that's the truth. Why does the average person underestimate female boxers? Okay. Because they do. But why? Okay, yeah. Here we go. I was in the wrong place. Let's talk about that. Why the average person underestimates female boxers. Okay? Many reasons. But it's a fact. It's a fact. Okay, let's see what's happening in the chat first. Anyone that come in the gym, Cameron, they got to get in the ring with Ann. That's part of her training. If you're not willing to do that, then go back out the door. And Ann said, if you think you can beat me, if you even think you can beat me, I'm going to hurt you. Yeah. Sharva says, fairer of the two sexes. Okay, let's get, now why do the average person underestimate female boxers though, right? The underestimation of female boxers arises from a mix of social bias, media economics, physiological misunderstandings, and structural barriers. Now, these forces interact to create a persistent public impression that female boxing is less skilled, less exciting, or less legitimate than male boxing. Even when many female fighters match or exceed the technical, tactical, and entertainment standards of their male peers. Now, here's some of the key reasons why some people underestimate female boxers. Here's some of the key reasons. Cultural stereotypes about gender and physicality. Deep-rooted beliefs equate combat sports with masculine traits, brute strength, aggression, which distort perceptions of skill when demonstrated by women. People often apply the same criteria used for evaluating male fighters. For example, knockout rate, raw power, and they equate the same traits to male fighters when same criteria used for evaluating male fighters, without adjusting for physiological differences and different tactical styles. I hope I don't see that word anymore. Media representation and visibility is another reason why some people underestimate women's boxing. Media representation and visibility. Underexposure. Fewer televised fights. Less prime time coverage. Smaller feature packages. And fewer promotional narratives. Reduced public familiarity and promotional investment, right? Framing bias. When covered, Female fights are often treated as novelty or marketed around appearance rather than technical merit, steering audience expectations away from competitive legitimacy. Now, highlighting exceptions. Now, the media tends to spotlight rare highlights, one-off knockouts, or sensational stories, rather than sustained technical excellence, skewing impressions. Economic and promotional incentives. Less investment by promoters and sponsors leads to fewer marquee matchups, smaller purses, and limited training resources, which in turn reduces the sport's quality of life cycle and public profile. It's a big one here. Pay disparity and fewer opportunities for cross-promotion mean casual fans rarely see female boxing at the highest levels. So they rely on the stereotypes, or the talking points, right? Differences in fighting styles and scoring. Yeah, that's a huge one, wasn't it, Shava? Yeah. Differences in fighting styles and scoring. Now, many top female boxers emphasize speed, volume punching, footwork, timing, and tactical ring IQ, rather than single shot knockout power, right? Now, spectators conditioned to value knockouts can misread these skills as less exciting or weaker, okay? Yeah, because they're so used to the knockout, they don't look at the speed, volume punching, footwork, timing, tactical ring IQ, all these skills these women fighters have. They don't see all these knockouts, so they just automatically look at it as less exciting or weaker, right? Now, lighter divisions, where many women compete. Now, statistically, they have fewer knockouts, the lighter divisions. Evaluating fighters by knockout frequency is therefore misleading, okay? Now, historical exclusion and institutional barriers. Long periods of prohibition and marginalization. For example, bans for major arenas, late inclusion in the Olympics that limited women's boxing's development trajectory, okay? Creating a cumulative death, lag in death, and public acceptance, okay? Just because of the institutional barriers. The long periods of prohibition, late inclusion in the Olympics, right? Coaching, facility access, and youth development pipelines historically prioritize boys growing up, right? Producing fewer high levels cohorts and less intergenerational knowledge transfer. Cognitive biases and social signals. Confirmation bias. Now, people selectively notice instances that confirm preconceptions. For example, underwhelming fight cited as evidence that women's boxing is always boring. When you look at a lot of underwhelming men's fights, just look at a Devin Haney fight, okay? Sorry, Evan, but yeah. If you want to look at the action in the ring and call some women's fights boring, just look at a Devin Haney fight. Always boring. Social signaling. The fans adopt prevailing attitudes of peers and influencers. If influential voices dismiss female boxing, that opinion spreads. The talking points. If influential voices dismiss female boxing, that opinion spreads. Yep. Now, half this underestimation is being corrected. Some examples: how this is being underestimation of women's boxing is being corrected. Some high-profile breakthroughs. Marquee fights with strong promotion. For example, Amanda Taylor versus Amanda Serrano, Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall. Okay, these fights drew large audiences, and it forces reevaluation of caliber and marketability of women's boxing. Okay, these are some ways that it's being corrected. Improved media ecosystems, streaming platforms, women-focused sports coverage, and social media let fighters build direct followings and showcase skill beyond traditional gatekeepers. Investment in grassroots and coaching. This is a big one here too. More amateur programs, scholarships, and pro-level coaching for girls at a young age. Increase depth and technical standard over time. Right, you got to start at a young age, right? And now you're seeing that in a lot of gyms where you used to see boys like 7 to 10 years old. You go in the gym, you see a lot of girls now that 7, 10 years, that young age in the gym box, you know? And that's a huge one in changing this narrative about women's boxing. Investment in grassroots and coaching, right? And start them out at a young age. Rule parity and inclusion. Olympic and pro regulatory support has normalized women's competitive pathways and clarified scoring standards for fans. Practical takeaway for fans and evaluators. Judge fighters on technical indicators appropriate to their division and style. Ring generalship, punch accuracy, defense, conditioning, tactical adaptability, and sustained work rate. Not knockout rate alone, okay? Judge fighters, these women fighters on all these other things. Don't just go in and say, well, they're not knocking each other out all the time or at a high rate, so, it must not be exciting, Look at the ring generalship, the punch accuracy, the defense, conditioning, tactical adaptability, and sustained work rate. These women fighters are great at all of those aspects of boxing. If you give them a chance and look at them in the ring, and not just looking for the knockout or the big heavy punches, you know what I mean? Seek a broader example of fights and follow fighters' development arcs rather than isolated highlights. Recognize the role of media in promotion and shaping perceptions. Greater exposure tends to align public opinion with actual competitive equality. Greater exposure, that's key right there, greater exposure. Summary. Underestimation is largely social and structural, not a reflection of inherent lack of skill. Let me say that again. Underestimation is largely social and structural, not a reflection of inherent lack of skill. As coverage, investment, and high-level competition continue to grow, public perception is shifting to match the demonstrated technical, tactical, and entertainment value that female boxing delivers. Okay? Let's look at some notable female boxers who have changed perception over the years. Okay? Some notable female boxers that are changing this perception of women's boxing. Okay, let's look at a few of these female boxers that's changing this, making people stand up and notice, like, hey, these women are entertaining in that ring. Let's look at some of these females. Several female boxers have significantly impacted the perception of women's boxing in recent years, showcasing incredible talent and drawing larger audiences. Here are some notable figures. Number 1, Clarissa Shields, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and the first boxer, male or female, to be 4-belt undisputed in 3 different weight classes. Also, the first one to do it in 2 weight classes was a women's boxer, Clarissa Shields. And there's only 2 fighters that's won 4 belt undisputed in 3 different weight classes. One of them is Clarissa Shields. The other one is Bud Crawford. And Clarissa Shields was first. Okay? Shields has been a vocal advocate for women's boxing, often challenging the narrative around female fighters. Her high-profile matches and outspoken nature have helped elevate the sport's visibility. Okay? Another one, Katie Taylor, Olympic gold medalist and undisputed lightweight champion. Okay, Katie Taylor was the second fighter to be undisputed in the 4 belt era in 2 weight classes. So you know what that means? The first 2 fighters that was undisputed in 2 weight classes in the 4 belt era were women. Okay, the first 2 were women. Right? Clarissa Shields and Katie Taylor were the first 2 fighters in the 4 belt era to be undisputed in 2 weight classes. Well, Katie Taylor might have been third, Bud might have been second, but the first 2 out of 3 were women. Okay? The first 2 out of 3 were women. Katie was before the Monster, Usyk, all of them. Only 5 have done it, okay, in 2 weight classes. 2 of them are women. Now, Katie Taylor's technical skill and ability to draw crowds have made her one of the most recognizable figures in women's boxing. Her fights, particularly against Amanda Serrano, have showcased the excitement and competitiveness of women's boxing. KT. And then another one is Amanda Serrano. We're talking about some women just changing their perception of women's boxing, making people stand up and notice. Another one is Amanda Serrano. And Manny better watch out, because Manny got 8 weight divisions. Amanda got 7, and she's still active. 7 division world champion, and one of the few fighters to hold titles in multiple weight classes simultaneously. Only 2 fighters have won titles in more than 6 weight divisions. One of them is a woman, Amanda Serrano, and the other one is Manny Pacquiao. Only 2 have done that. One of them is Amanda Serrano, a female boxer. Okay? And remember, only 2 fighters have held titles in 3 weight classes at the same time. One of them is a female boxer, Wolfe. Okay? Only 2 in the history of boxing have done that, Henry Armstrong and Wolfe. Now, Serrano's knockout power and skill have garnered attention and respect. Her fights with Taylor were landmark events that brought significant media coverage to women's boxing. Jessica McCaskill, also a 2-time undisputed welterweight champion, Jessica McCaskill. Okay? McCaskill's rise in the sport challenged perceptions of women's boxing, particularly as she defeated established champions to claim her titles and showcased her toughness and skills in the ring. Now, the first woman to be undisputed in the 4 belt era was the Swedish lady, Cecilia Brækhus, right? And Jessica McCaskill took her titles. That's how she became undisputed. Jessica McCaskill was the 3rd person to be undisputed in the 4 belt era, behind B-Hop, Jermaine Taylor. Next was Jessica McCaskill. Female boxer was the 3rd one to do that. Okay, Franchon Cruz Dezern. She was the undisputed super middleweight champion in the 4 belt era. Franchon is known for his fierce fighting style and has been pivotal in advocating for equal pay and recognition for female fighters, contributing to the broader narrative of women's inclusion in combat sports. Murray Calm, going back a ways now, Murray Calm. Check this out. 6-time world champion and Olympic medalist. While primarily known for achievements in amateur boxing, Murray Calm's legacy and influence have opened doors for many female athletes in India and beyond, promoting the sport at grassroots levels. Yeah, Mary Kom is one of the pioneers of women's boxing. Oh, she just retired this weekend, Shava? Wow. Man, Cecilia just retired this past weekend. She had a long, legendary career, Cecilia Brackens. And she heading into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, the big one. Because they got the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame, and we got 6 women in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Cecilia Brackens will be number 7. No doubt about it. Okay, Callie Reese, former WBC and WBO world champion. Now, Callie Reese combines boxing with advocacy for social issues, using her platform to raise awareness on topics like indigenous rights, thus broadening appeal and perception of female boxers. And these athletes have not only excelled in their sport, but have also played crucial roles in challenging stereotypes and increasing the visibility and legitimacy of women's boxing. Their achievements continue to inspire new generations of female fighters and fans alike. Okay. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting there. Now let's look at some of these pioneers of women's boxing now. Some of the pioneers, that it wasn't for them, wouldn't be no Clarissa Shields, Katie Taylors, Amanda Serrano's. None of these women we just talked about that's making people stand up and notice the sport now. But these are the women that came before them, okay? These are the women that came before them. First is Elizabeth Wilkinson. We're going way back. Elizabeth Wilkinson. Oh, man. Okay, where's it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, appreciate everybody for stopping by today. We're going to talk about some pioneers now of the women's game. I think. Yeah. Elizabeth Wilkinson. Elizabeth Wilkinson. There we go. Oh, come on, Elizabeth. Okay. Bear with me for one moment, please. There we go. She was an English pro boxer, Elizabeth was. I don't know what. Oh, this damn phone, man. Right now. Okay. Bear with me. Yeah, we're getting ready to talk about the pioneers in one moment. There we go. Okay. Yeah, Elizabeth Wilkinson is first. Yeah, that's Elizabeth up there, knocking somebody out. Now, she's also referred to as Elizabeth Stokes. She was an English bare knuckle boxer, okay, bare knuckle, and practitioner of historical European weapon arts, active in the 1720s and early 1730s. She was one of the earliest known female boxers. During her decade-long career, she was often described as a championess and had a reputation for having fought 45 fights without defeat, although no official career data survives from the time. Now, later in her career, she engaged in fights in which she and her husband, who was also a boxer, fought against other mixed-gender couples. She was also skilled with daggers, short swords, and quarterstaffs. She was one of the most famous prize fighters of her time, and writers including Pierce Egan and Thomas More celebrated her career into the early 19th century. Elizabeth Wilkinson. We're talking about some women pioneers now. Jane Couch. Jane Couch. Jane Couch. Okay. There's Jane. Let's talk about Jane. Yeah, did not know Chava that Cecilia had just retired this past weekend. Wow. But she had a legendary career. Yeah, Jane Couch. That's Jane Couch right there. Okay. Yeah. Now, she was a British former pro boxer. She competed from 1994 to 2007. She became the first licensed female boxer in the United Kingdom. Okay. First licensed female boxer in the United Kingdom. Couch was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame as part of the class of 2024. Okay. Born in Fleetwood, Lancashire, Couch was expelled from her school in Blackpool and thereafter lived a life of booze, drugs, and street fighting. At the age of 26, she saw a television documentary about women boxing and decided to try it. In her first official fight, which was a Muay Thai fight, she defeated a policewoman, about which she said, "It felt good to flatten a police officer and get paid for it." Jane Couch. Okay. Kathy Cat Davis is next. Kathy Cat Davis. It was a nickname. Cat. There's Kathy Cat. Davis. Yeah, we're talking about some of the women pioneers of the sport now. Kathy Davis competed between 1976 and 1981. Okay? 76 and 81. She sued the New York State Athletic Commission in 1977 because she was denied a boxing license because she was a woman. And the case was decided in her favor later that year, with the judge invalidating New York State Rule number 205.15, which stated, "No woman may be licensed as a boxer or second, or licensed to compete in any wrestling exhibition with men." In his opinion, the judge cited the precedent set by Garrett versus New York State Athletic Commission in 1975, which found the regulation. The judge found the regulation invalid under the equal protection clauses of the state and federal constitutions. And the New York State Athletic Commission filed an appeal, but later dropped it. In August 1978, Davis became the first and only woman to be on the cover of the Ring magazine until Ronda Rousey did it in January 2016. She was the first woman on the cover of the Ring. On September 19, 1978, Davis received the New York State Athletics Commission's first boxing license given to a female boxer. Cat Davis not only fought in New York, she fought between 1976 and 1981 in various areas of the country, including Nevada, California, and much of the Northwest. She became popular throughout the country by often fighting on television. It was eventually revealed that some of her fights were fixed. Shouldn't have started that part. Okay. Barbara Buttrick is next. There's Barbara Buttrick. Okay, bear with me for 1 minute, please. You're going to get to Barbara Buttrick. Okay. Oh, shoot. Excuse me for a minute. Yeah, looking at some women pioneers of the sport of boxing now. Barbara Buttrick. And then we're going to talk about those women that's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame too. But let's talk about Barbara now. Barbara Buttrick. We're gonna Tyson Fury is gonna be the profile this week. The Gypsy King, okay? And Thursday, I think we're going to talk about boxing in Great Britain on Thursday. Because we had been doing on Thursdays going around the world and looking at boxing in different countries in alphabetical order like we did boxing in the States. We're going to get back to that Thursday. Okay? But right now, we're looking at some female boxing pioneers. And we're going to resume in 1 minute with Barbara Buttrick. That's her up there on the screen. Barbara, I think she boxed back around the 50s, but let's talk about it. Barbara, there we go. Yeah, Barbara Buttrick is next. Now, at 4'11" tall, right? Barbara Buttrick was known as the Mighty Atom of the ring. She was born in England in 1929. At age 15, she spotted the story in the Sunday paper about Polly Burns, a female prize fighter in the early 1900s. Now, Buttrick bought her first pair of boxing gloves and found a trainer in London where she worked as a shorthand typist by day and trained to eventually become one of the best female boxers at night. Trained at night and turned into one of the best female boxers. She said, I was small, but I was mean, okay, 4'11". Now, Buttrick began her boxing career in 1948, touring Europe as a bantamweight in the boxing booths of carnivals before coming to North America in 1952. Also known as Battling Barbara, she fought professionally in Canada and the United States before moving to Dallas, Texas in 1957. By the time Buttrick arrived in Texas, she had fought over 1,000 fights with men as well as women, okay? It was then in San Antonio, Texas, that Battling Barbara truly made history, winning a world title fight against Phyllis Kubler, solidifying her position as one of the most famous female boxers of all time, okay? After moving to Miami Beach with her husband, she defeated Gloria Adams in what is believed to be the first female boxing fight in Florida in 1959. She fought her last fight in 1960, get this, while 4 months pregnant before retiring to raise her children and pivot careers to be a ringside photographer. Yes, she fought her last fight, she was 4 months pregnant. Buttrick was inducted into the International Boxing and Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1990. And she founded the Women's International Boxing Federation in 1993. Okay, Barbara Buttrick. Okay, talking about some pioneers. Marion Tremillard. Here's Marion Tremillard. Okay. Marion Tremillard. Boxing pioneer. Now for these women like Barbara Buttrick, Marion Tremillard, Cat Davis, Jane Couch, Elizabeth Wilkinson, there would be no Groot, Katie Taylor, Madden Serrano, Alicia Baumgardner, none of them without these women. These are the pioneers. Marion Tremillard was known as Lady Tiger. Okay, Lady Tiger. Now, Bronx-born Marion Tremillard is the first woman to be granted a professional boxing license by the New York State Athletic Commission. Okay. Tremillard, known as Lady Tiger, began boxing right out of high school at age 18 and was fighting in exhibition fights before it was legal for women to fight in sanctioned fights. She turned pro in Canada in 1975, but was limited by state restrictions on female boxing in the United States. Tremillard applied for a boxing license in her home state of New York, only to be denied. I slept, ate, ran boxing. It didn't give me nothing back, Tremillard told the grueling truth. You don't realize the prejudice out there. Of all the isms, and I know them all, sexism is the worst. Now, yeah, she got a license before Cat Davis, but that law was still on the books. Cat Davis was the one that got that law taken off the books. Okay, Tremillard actually came before Cat Davis, but Cat Davis got the law reversed. Now, after a long legal battle, the Lady Tiger was finally issued a boxing license by New York State in 1978 and went on to win the Women's World Lightweight Championship in 1979. A lifelong advocate, Tremillard went on a month-long hunger strike in 1987 for better working conditions and higher pay for female pro boxers. Wow. Marion Tremillard was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2021 as one of the best female boxers of all time. Marion Tremillard. Okay. Now let's look at some more of these great female pioneers. The coal miner's daughter is next. Christy Martin, the coal miner's daughter. Told you everything just works perfect until 2 o'clock. Stay with me for a moment again. We got like about 5 more pioneers. There we go. The coal miner's daughter is next. Christy Martin. Yeah, there's the coal miner's daughter up there on the screen. Let me see what's going on in the chat first. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate you, Cameron. Let's see. Okay. The coal miner's daughter, Christy Martin. Let's talk about Christy real quick. Come on. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, I sure was. Now we're ready. Okay. Yeah, Christy Martin. Now, Christy Martin was one of the first 2 women to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay. She made her pro debut in 1989 and competed up until 2012, when she retired after loss to Mia St. John. During her career, she fought on the undercards of global superstars, including Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. Martin came agonizingly close to rounding off her career with a 50th professional win, but it was not to be. The coal miner's daughter retired with a record of 49 wins, 7 losses, 3 draws, and 31 knockouts. Not bad. 31 knockouts in 49 fights for the coal miner's daughter. That's the rate of 63.2%. Okay? Over 60% for women's boxing is outstanding. Lucia Ridgeker. Looking at some pioneers. Mike Grimm says Keith Thurman should watch what she did in that. Keith Thurman should watch what she did to that tall woman for tips. Okay, Mike. Yeah, we got to send Keith that film. Lucia Ridgeker. Lucia Ridgeker was an extremely fitting announcement for the first ever Women's International Boxing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The Dust Destroyer is widely regarded as the best female boxer of all time, and her record speaks for itself. A lot of people think it's Lucia. People say Layla. People say that broke Carissa. A lot of people say Lucia Richker. Richker was unbeaten in her career, including her stint in kickboxing. She never lost in boxing or kickboxing, with a record of 17-0 and 14 wins by knockout in boxing. It was an easy call to include the Dutch star in the first ever woman class of inductions to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Now she got 14 knockouts and 17 wins. That is a 82.3 knockout ratio. Outstanding for Lucia. Okay. So next we had in 1999, Richker embarked on a new career as an actress. And she was featured in the likes of $1 Million Baby and Star Trek. Wow. Star Trek. Next is Layla Ali. How can it be 3:37 already? I've just been on it for like 10 minutes. Thought it was like 2:25 or something. Layla Ali. Well, we're gonna finish. Okay, Layla Ali. Man, I don't believe that. It's 3:37. We got a little timeline going through women's boxing history. We're gonna get that in too. Layla Ali. As the daughter of Muhammad Ali, Layla had some big footprints to follow, and she did not disappoint. After an 8-year career in boxing, Layla retired undefeated, winning all 24 of her pro fights, 21 of which came by knockout. I happen to know that was 87% for Layla. I did her as many times. 87.5%, outstanding. Only 3 went the distance with Layla, okay? Fighting under the ring name, She Be Stingy, which pays homage to her father's legacy. Ali first stepped into the ring age 18, inspired by Christy Martin. And she fought Christy. She then went on to hold the WBC, WIBA, IWBF, and IBA female super middleweight titles, as well as the IWBF light heavyweight title. And since her retirement, she has presented and appeared on a number of television shows, including American Gladiators with Hulk Hogan. Of course, Ann Wolfe, but we talked about Ann. Holly Holm. Holly's still active. She called out, I forgot the lady's name she just called out in the last fight. Was it Jennifer? I can't remember. Holly Holm, but there's Holly. Also was in the UFC too. Now ranked as the best professional female boxer of all time by BoxRec, Holly Holm was always lined up to be inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. The preacher's daughter defended her multiple world titles on 18 occasions across 3 weight divisions throughout her decorated career. Held in high regard as one of the best in the business, Holm called time on her boxing career with a record of 33 wins, 2 losses, 3 draws, before going on to become a trailblazer in mixed martial arts. Now she's back in boxing. Okay. Yeah, she came back to boxing. She started boxing, went to MMA. Now she's back in boxing. I think Holly's in the early 40s too. Got to be. No, think about it. Regina Hamage. Just Regina facing us on the left. It's like an overhand left, I guess. Yeah. Now, Regina Hamage is one of the most successful female boxers of all time and played a huge part in spearheading the women's sport in Europe. Yeah, she was really a big-time trail. Without her, no Katie Taylor, okay? And the other women boxers over there in Europe without Regina Hamage. She's from Germany. She started her career in kickboxing before going on to hold world titles in the flyweight and super flyweight boxing divisions. Hamage won 54 of her 56 pro fights, losing 1 and drawing on the other. 54 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw in her career. She also competed against male TV show host Stefan Raab during a promotional fight in 2001, and then again in 2007. Hamage broke Raab's nose in the first meeting and then beat him once again when they played out their rematch. Yeah, Shaba, you was talking about Lucia for the male also too, right? I think Charles said. Lucia Rich. Just Do Boxing is in the building. What's up, Just Do? Coming up next at 4 p.m. That's who I'm warming y'all up for. Just Do Boxing is in the building. Thomas Hill, the legendary Thomas Hill in the building. What's up, Thomas Hill? And Just Do Boxing. Salute. Okay, I got one more thing. I want to look at this boxing timeline through women's boxing history, okay? Let's take a look at that. A timeline through women's boxing history. Just the quote. A timeline through women's boxing history, okay? Let's take a look at that. How's everybody today, though? It's Wednesday. Still early in this big week of boxing history. We got the Hump Day edition tomorrow. Thursday, we got Great Britain. We're going to look at boxing in Great Britain. A little history of boxing over there, and some of the great boxers that came from there. And Friday is going to be the life and career of the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. Okay? We can look at everybody, love them or hate them. Retired boxers, except for the first week of the month. But I guess, Tyson Fury's coming back, but he ain't came back yet, so he's still retired right now. Okay? Let's look at this timeline, run through women's boxing history, okay? Okay. There we go. This thing is slow. Oh, there we go. I'll get ready to beg it to come up. Okay. A timeline of women's boxing history. 1876. New York Hills Theater holds a boxing fight between Nell Saunders and Rose Harlan. This is considered the first female fight in the United States. And the prize for the fight, the winner got a silver butter dish. Okay? A silver butter dish. 1904, men and women's boxing is introduced at the Modern Olympic Games in St. Louis as display events. The men's boxing was accepted into the Olympics as a regular sport. Women's was not. Women's were not back in the Olympics for 108 years until 2012 when women's came into it for good. Over 100 years later. Wow. 1954. We just talked about her. Barbara Buttrick is the first female boxer to have a fight broadcast on national television. Buttrick fought as a 98-pound flyweight and was only 4 feet and 11 inches tall. And remember, she fought her final fight. She was 4 months pregnant. Barbara was. 1975. Eva Shane becomes the first female judge in professional boxing. She went on to judge many professional fights, including a world heavyweight title fight and 50 other title fights. This was a quote for her obituary. It wasn't the idea of being a trailblazer, Mrs. Shane said of her pioneering role. It was just something I wanted to do. You know, Eva was the first women's judge, and she said she wasn't trying to be a trailblazer. She just wanted to be a boxing judge, that's all. 1975. Nevada issues the first female boxing license to Caroline Vinson. In the following 3 years, California and New York followed suit. Remember, New York gave it to Marion Trimillard and Kathy Davis. We looked at those two. 1979. A successful lawsuit brought by Shirley Tucker and the ACLU forces California to change their regulations that it limited women boxers to no more than 4 rounds. Wow. Well, at least they got 10 now. They was only getting 4 back then. That's ridiculous. Wow. Imagine a championship fight being 4 rounds. Okay. 1987. Marion Tremillard stages a month-long hunger strike, advocating for better conditions, pay, and recognition for women boxers. She said, "It's my heart, it's my love. Unless women get more recognition, we will be fighting just as a novelty for the rest of our lives. There will be no future." That's what Marion said. She went on a month-long hunger strike. Didn't say she wasn't drinking the water, though. She couldn't have survived that, right? 1988. Sweden becomes the first country to lift a ban on women's amateur boxing. Wow, 1988. Women couldn't even box in the amateurs. 1988, Sweden was the first country to lift that ban. April 16th, 1992. Gail Grandchamp wins an 8-year legal battle for the right to fight. The judge rules that it is illegal to deny someone the right to fight based on their gender. Okay? 1992, not that long, just 30-something years ago, man. March 1993. Dallas Malloy and the ACLU filed a lawsuit against USA Boxing. USA Boxing settles and lifts the ban prohibiting women from boxing. And this was just 1993. Man. October 1993. So the ban was lifted in March, and in October, the same one that filed the suit with the ACLU, Dallas Malloy, defeats Heather Pointer by decision in the first sanctioned women's amateur fight in the United States. 1993. Just 32 years ago was the first sanctioned women's amateur fight in the United States. You would think that happened like 80, 90 years ago. Just 32 years ago, 1993. The first sanctioned women's amateur fight in the United States. Wow. 1994. The Amateur International Boxing Association lifted the ban on women's boxing. 1994. That's crazy. 1995. New York Golden Gloves includes women for the first time. 1995. 1996. Christy Martin fights Deidre Gogarty. This fight is considered the birth of modern pro women's boxing in the United States. 1996, less than 30 years ago. Right around 30. Also in 1996, England lifted the ban on women's amateur boxing. Yes, remember Sweden lifted the ban in 1988. England did it almost 10 years later, 1996. Then in 1997, USA Boxing holds its first national championship for women. 1999, the Amateur International Boxing Association approves the first European Cup for women. Okay. 2001, the first Women's World Amateur Boxing Championship takes place in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And then in 2009, the International Olympic Committee votes to lift the ban on women's boxing. So this was right in time for the 2012 Olympics. And then in 2011, this was right in hand with them lifting that ban in 2009. Women's boxing is included in the Pan Am Games for the first time, right? Because that's always like the year before the Olympics, the Pan Am Games, right? It has a direct bearing on the Olympics. And then in 2012, women's boxing debuted as an Olympic event for the first time since 1904, when it was like a sample event. Remember, 1904, men and women was put on just to get a look at them, and they kept men and waited 108 years before they let the women into the Olympics. Wow, that's crazy, man. But yeah, there you have it. A look at women's boxing featuring Ann Wolfe today. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Okay. I don't know what's going on tomorrow, but we'll be here at 2:00 with some boxing history. I do know that much. But I know Thursday we're going to look at boxing in Great Britain, and Friday, the life and career of the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. Okay, we got to do them all. We're going to take a look at Tyson Friday. But we still early in this week of history. It's Tuesday. And yeah, women's boxing have come a long way, but still got a ways to go because still only getting 10 rounds in 2 minutes, you know? So still got a ways to go. But the women's boxing right now is as popular as it's ever been, okay? I remember back in the 80s and stuff, you didn't hear about women's boxing back then. They weren't even allowed to box in the amateurs, nowhere, until 1988, right? So it's come a long ways, but still got a ways to go, okay? But yeah, we got some women now that's putting the sport on the map, like those names we mentioned, the Gwoat, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Cass Skiller, Cecilia Brackers. Sharma said she just retired this past weekend. Wow. I remember her last fight. I think she fought earlier this year. But yeah, I think she was about 40 or something like that. But Cecilia was the first woman, remember, to win the undisputed in the 4-belt era, right after B-Hop and Jermaine Taylor. It wasn't the Gwoat, it was Cecilia Brackers. First woman to be undisputed in the 4-belt era, okay? And remember, the first person to be 4-belt undisputed in 3 different weight classes was also a woman, the Gwoat. And also the first woman to be undisputed in 2 weight classes in the 4-belt era was the Gwoat, a woman female boxer. Then I think Bud was second in 2 weight classes. But guess who the third one was? Another female boxer, Katie Taylor. And remember, Ann Wolfe. There's only 2 boxers in the history of the sport of boxing that's held 3 world titles in 3 different weight classes at the same time. One of them is a female boxer, Ann Wolfe. The other one is Henry Armstrong. Only 2 boxers have done that in the history of the sport. One of them a female boxer, Brown Sugar, Ann Wolfe. Okay? So don't get it twisted. Women's boxing, it's on the map and worth checking out. Because women get in there and put it on the line just like the men do. People have died doing what they do, okay? It takes a special person to be a boxer. I ain't never did it and wouldn't do it, okay? I ain't going up nobody's steps and getting in somebody throws at my head. I boxed out on the street, but there was sticks and bottles and stuff laying around too that you could grab if it get too bad. But yeah, boxers are a special breed, man. We had to salute them. And we had to stop at this bum and cab driver. Because back in the old days, boxers were actually cab drivers and bouncers. They had to get other jobs because they wasn't making no money, right? So yeah, anybody that go up those steps, which those got my respect, man. And when they say, well, he ain't fought nobody. They fought a grown adult professional boxer that's throwing hands at their head, trying to knock them out. So I don't buy that they ain't fought nobody. You get in, the ones that talking they ain't fought nobody, get in there and let them throw punches at your head then. Since they ain't nobody. Every boxer is somebody, okay? Every one of them. Okay, Just Do Boxing is next. I appreciate everybody that came through today and supported this show. 1,000%. Thomas Hill, Just Do Boxing, Al Booger, BBO Sports TV. This show was brought to you by BBO Sports TV. Mike Mazik, Mike Rim, Irony Boxing, Shower, Ray Patterson, Karen Terrell, and Miss Cass. Appreciate everybody 1,000%. We'll be back tomorrow with another exciting episode of Cass Wolfe the Box Story. Because if it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Storian bringing you all that boxing history. Everybody have a great afternoon.